You have this interesting legend of the time you were summoned to Apple by Steve Jobs. You know what I'm going to ask you. What happened? And then how does that relate to where you're at today?
Well, we had Steve had heard about Dropbox, and yeah, we arrived at one infinite loop, and he started by telling us that we started the meeting, and he's like, "You've built a great product." And so you can imagine kind of bucket list, like, okay,
yeah.
check that
Steve Jobs said, I love it. Yeah.
And then it was actually we were interested in building the company, and we weren't looking to sell. So the formal part of the conversation was pretty quick, but yeah, no, it's been a wild ride for sure.
Right, so the legend goes, he said, not so subtly, that, well, we're just gonna have to crush you guys and put you out of business. And 10 or so years later, you're here. How does that feel? Do you feel vindicated by that at all?
Yeah, I mean, it feels great. I mean, we're really proud of the business that we've built, and I'm just really proud of the team and sort of the culmination of a lot of hard work by many people. So just feeling really excited and really grateful.
Great. And so you're here now. Speaking of Apple, though, and these other giants, so this industry is dominated by 4 or 5 big players, and it seems like everyone else is kind of fighting over whatever is left. How do you compete in that environment where there's so much power and influence in just a handful of players? How do you stay afloat?
Well, we stay close to our customers, and when I sit in roundtables with customers, they show me their phones, and they've got products from everyone, right? They got Dropbox, they got all the Google products, they got all the Microsoft products, and they turn to us and they're like, hey, can someone build a cloud to sync my clouds? And so we provide that's our strength, is that we help tie everything together. And we found that while there's overlap with the larger companies, folks like Microsoft and Google have become partners over the years.
And what does that partnership look like when you partner with an Apple or you partner with a Google? What does that look like to me as a user?
Well, when you open an Office document in Dropbox, you can then open it in the native apps on the phone, and vice versa. And then Dropbox is a place where you can put all of your information. So we certainly we share a lot of users between Dropbox and any major product. And so those integrations are really valuable, and we want to make sure that our shared experience is good.
Mm-hmm. So going into today, your IPO day, there was a little bit of worry about your valuation, how it seemed like you might be IPOing at a price under the valuation you were at a few years ago, which is reportedly $10 billion. Today, how do you feel now that I think it was up, the stock is up about 40 some odd percent, approximately up to $12 billion in valuation? How does that feel?
I mean, again, we're really proud of the business we've built, and one thing I tell the team is, get used to the stock going up and down. This will be a normal everyday occurrence, and so, whatever the price is today, it'll be something different tomorrow. So that's outside of our control. So what I really make sure that the team stays focused on is that our customers don't really care if we're public or private. They just want a great experience, and they're the ones who are at the foundation of the business we're building. So we need to stay focused on keeping our customers happy and building the best products.
Do you see yourselves as kind of a bellwether for the next round of big unicorn IPOs, the Airbnbs and Spotifys and Lyfts of the world who are thinking about IPOing soon into this kind of shaky market right now? Do you see yourself as a bellwether stock for that?
I think we're all excited about this cohort of companies, and I'm looking forward to seeing Daniel take Spotify public, and a lot of these founders are my friends, and so it's certainly a lot of fun to watch them scale their businesses.
I want to read you something that I think you probably have already read, but it's from one of your competitors, Aaron Levy from Box. He wrote a op-ed or open letter in Axios a couple weeks ago. He said, quote, "If you look at the past 10 years of headlines from Dropbox, every 6 months there's a new push into business. They've had multiple heads of sales. They've had multiple go-to-market efforts." This is largely a critique, I guess, of your enterprise business. How do you respond to that? Is your enterprise different? Are you competitors with Box in that sense in the enterprise, or what's your approach to the enterprise?
Well, I think one thing that everybody now is starting to better understand is we have a lot of enterprise customers. We just don't have a traditional enterprise model. And so
what does that mean?
We think about basically applying the consumer internet playbook to business software. And our business, we've got a really interesting hybrid model because we're taking the best of our consumer roots, so the virality and scale, and then combining it with the predictability and monetization of a SaaS company. And the combination is really powerful. So we were the fastest SaaS company to a billion run rate. And we're able to acquire hundreds of thousands of paying businesses without having a huge sales team. So we like to say our 500 million registered users are our best salespeople.
Shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk about diversity and gender issues in the Valley. I don't know if you've read it, but I was really into this book by Emily Chang from Bloomberg Brotopia. And one of the things they talked about in there was, it's kind of a slow-moving thing. You guys have released diversity numbers before, pretty much in line with a lot of your peers in the Valley. One of the solutions presented in that book, I'm curious for your take on this, is the gender pay gap issue. How it's one of those things, sure, recruiting might take time, years even, and I know you're involved in efforts to help out with that, and we can talk about that. But when it comes to gender pay, isn't that something that can be fixed now? You can literally just flip a switch and look at data. Talk a little bit about how you're thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say more broadly, Arash and I have always wanted,
Arash, your co-founder.
My co-founder, and I have always wanted Dropbox to be a great place to work for everyone. And we certainly believe that two people doing the same work should be compensated the same way. So I agree. There are certain, while as an industry we have a long way to go, there are certainly things that are directly within companies' control. And so by all means, within our company, we take a close look at equity or gender pay equity, and I think every company should.
And on the diversity end, this week it came out that you're part of this new initiative that I think is pretty interesting. This idea that if you're a startup seeking funding, you won't accept the money unless there's good representation from the VC firm. Talk about what that's called and how you got involved.
Yeah, it's called Founders for Change, and I think, again, along the same lines, we want so much of America, so much of Silicon Valley is based on this idea of equal opportunity, and I think all of us want the Valley and tech to be a place where that is true, and we want it within our companies, and we want that same equal opportunity when it comes to our investors. So it's a large group of founders, and we got introduced through Sequoia, who is our first venture capital backer. So I think I think it's great that the founders and the community can come together and try to move things forward.
And is the idea here to start it with maybe smaller startups and who are building themselves from the ground up? Is that why you're doing it through VC firms?
Yeah, I think if all the founders can come together as a community and agree, like this is the world we want to live in, this is what we want our funding landscape to be. That's something that we hope the investment community would pay attention to.
I want to talk about Salesforce.
Sure.
So I think it was last week or a few days ago we learned about this $100 million investment.
Yeah.
People started raising questions. Does that mean an acquisition? It seems like they're kind of hungry to acquire companies. They just had a big acquisition earlier this week, as you probably know. How do you view, with this big investment, do you see them as a partner still, obviously, but as a potential merger down the road?
It's an evolution of our partnership, and a pretty big one. So, Mark and I have been friends for a long time, and I really admire everything that he's done with Salesforce. And when I look at their path from $1 billion to $2 billion to $5 billion, $10 billion in revenue, I think there's a lot of important lessons there for SaaS companies and for our company. And then Mark's been excited about Dropbox for a long time. So I think that the investment is a reflection that he's excited about where Dropbox is headed, and it's a great way for us to have an umbrella to do more together on the partnership front. So a lot coming on the product integration front, some interesting go-to-market opportunities. So we have our median customer tends to be a little different, and so Salesforce, or this partnership, can be over time a way for us to reach or to drive adoption among larger customers and vice versa. So we have a lot of smaller businesses where and Salesforce is looking at SMB as a vector for growth. And so over time, I think there's a lot more we can do on many fronts.
So there's that partnership again with the bigger guys, right?
Yeah.
And then finally, I want to talk about this week. Mark Zuckerberg came out, and part of that interview really stuck out to me was this notion that he's a little bit more open to regulation, which is the first I've heard from a major tech CEO about even being open instead of self-regulating. Maybe we should be regulated. Have you thought about that at all? I know you're not even closer on the scale or even the same kind of business as these social media companies, but just broadly industry-wide, what do you think regulation could or should look like?
Well, I think if you look at any other sector and you look at our market, the government is an important voice in these conversations. And so how is the policy going to evolve? I mean, I think that's going to be something that unfolds over many years. I also think that companies should be, we shouldn't wait for that. Like, I think we all realize that it's critical that we trust all the services we use, and that's certainly top of mind for us, as you can imagine, and our customers, their security and privacy. And so, I think what the government does from a policy standpoint, from a regulation standpoint, I think can go a lot of different directions. But we want to make sure that whether as a private company or a public company, that we're doing everything we can to keep our users' information safe and earning their trust.
And then finally, I read this really interesting profile about you in the New York Times a week or two ago, and had this vision of you in your apartment singing Pearl Jam by yourself. So is that true? And tell me about this Pearl Jam obsession we have.
Yeah, so I loved, in high school, I loved a lot of, or 90s rock was really the first genre of music I really got into. And so we actually, the formal name of the company was Even Flow Incorporated, because we weren't sure if we'd be able to get Dropbox.com, the domain name. So I'm like, all right, let's leave our options open. So yeah, I love music in general, but the company was technically named after a Pearl Jam song.
I think the first check, Y Combinator is tweeting it today, right? And it says
that's right.
in there.
Yeah. And we actually got the Pearl Jam guys they invested in Dropbox
nice.
a few years ago. So
was that like a dream come true? That
it's like someone was,
more than IPO.
My general counsel,
the Pearl Jam check.
Yeah, my general counsel was like, well, this is one way to get Eddie Vedder's signature.
Right.
So yeah, it's been fun to get to watch them play and to get different musicians involved in the company.